Force Reserve, you have the freedom to find your own meaning of success. The freedom to build your future on your own time. Career for yourself, career for your country. If all you want is everything, you might just get it. When you're ready, so are we.
I'm focused. I've been watching for the omens. I've been listening to everything you said. It's been running through my head, locked and loaded. I got the feeling that you know it. Yeah, I've only just begun. I won't stop until it's done, till you're broken. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the lighter. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. I've been waiting for this moment, the final battle of the chosen. See, I'm never gonna quit, got my legacy set in motion. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the lighter. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. Welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. 'Cause the bigger they are, the harder they fall. You build your fortress and I'll climb your walls. You got your armor, but I see your flaws. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the lighter. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
I'm Master Sergeant Janet Lindsay. I'm also a principal at Bear Lake Middle School and a reservist here at Hill Air Force Base. As a first-generation graduate of high school and college, our parents are from Mexico. And so we weren't really exposed to the military as much, just by seeing it, by being in the Austin, San Antonio area and seeing the recruits graduating from boot camp. And with that inspiration, it's like, oh, I want to be part of that. I want to wear that uniform. I remember distinctly my Sunday school teacher. Her name was Sister Francis, and she inspired me to have that love for kids and go into the education route. So graduating early at 15, college at 18, and then took on teaching. Joining the Air Force Reserve allowed me that flexibility of being able to be part of two worlds, being part of something greater, serving our country, and also at the same time serving our students and new generations. I want the students to be able to see me and know that they can be anything they want to be. They can be a principal, they can be a teacher, they can be a doctor, they can be a lawyer, they can go into education, they can be in the Air Force. Some of the values I have picked up from serving in the Air Force are integrity. And I also preach that in the office, in our school, and our students. Integrity first. Someone's always watching. And if no one is, you always act like someone's watching. So those values of the Air Force definitely fall into my civilian side. While teaching, the Air Force Reserve is very flexible. That allowed me to be able to teach and to go to school at the same time, pursuing my doctorate degree. I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. And so, yeah, the Air Force Reserve did pay for the whole degree. My son thinks it's really cool that I'm part of the Air Force. And I sometimes tell him, yeah, Mom was there. Mom was in Afghanistan. Mom was deployed to Jordan. No, not you. Yeah, so it's cool. I'm kind of like a hero for him. Being part of the Air Force Reserve is being part of something greater, being part of a bigger family. If you're ready for more and you're ready for something bigger than yourself, join the Air Force Reserve. It's definitely for you.
Is that because my window's open? Okay.
I am an American Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
This is getting out of control.
Out of control.
It's cool enough that we have that intro with the Airman's Creed.
Yeah.
But before that, we had the intro video with some of our guests from today. Today's show is going to be off the chain. It's going to be amazing for two reasons. One, we get to talk all things Air Force Reserve with some of the most knowledgeable people in the Air Force Reserve.
Correct.
Helping us answer all of our questions and all that stuff. But on the other hand, it's really cool because for the first time on this show, we're actually hosting professional athletes, and specifically professional athletes from the motorsports division. actually family, literally family.
Yes.
We have with us the Sorensen Motorsports team. That's going to be Amanda, her brother, and also one of their team members. So you guys have no idea what's coming, but I hope you're ready to queue up all the questions and get ready to get to that part of the show. But right now, let's introduce our guests.
Well, should we introduce ourselves first?
No.
Who are you?
No. I want to get to the guests.
I don't know who you are.
I'm Tech Sergeant Greg Cerny.
I'm Master Sergeant Holly Patterson.
Okay, now let's go to the guests.
Oh, are we muted?
Oh, tell me we've been muted
We've
this
been
whole
muted this
time.
whole time.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So now that goes down as like record-breaking mistake. I've bragged about being able to make 5 mistakes screwing up somebody's name coming into the show, but you got to be kidding me. I was animated. I was talking. You have no idea what I was saying.
Well, it sounded like you were.
Yeah, I could hear everybody.
I wasn't looking at. Okay. Anyway, rewind. Okay. Check it out. I'm going to do this in like 5 seconds. So now that we've gotten to this point, we're just going to skip everything else. We're super excited. They're super excited. I hope you're super
Everybody's
excited.
excited.
But we've got something happening today that we've never had before. We're going to have the first time we've ever had professional athletes on the show. But they're going to help us talk about all things Air Force Reserve and what makes Air Force Reserve so cool. All of the uniforms that you see in the shot that's in the middle, our guests, are all Air Force Reserve and be able to answer any questions that you guys have about a whole ton of different topics, Air Force Reserve. And then, like I said, for the first time, we've actually got professional athletes, the professional racing team, Sorensen Racing Team, joining us as well. And now that I've just blown the entire intro to the show, but you guys know what you're doing here. Yeah, see?
Yes.
Thank you. That and lightning within 5.
Correct.
You guys know the rules. All right, perfect. Sorensen team, why don't you guys introduce yourselves now that you can hear us and I have completely blundered the entire open of the show. Take it away.
Hi guys, my name is Amanda Sorensen, professional motorsports athlete, sponsored by the United States Air Force. I am a driver of this pink Air Force BMW behind me, and then next to me we have my brother, who is...
Hello, what's up guys? My name is Branden and Sorensen. I also compete in the same series as my sister in a professional Formula Drift car, and we also do a couple other styles of racing through the desert and everything else. I'm also one of the engineers behind these crazy 1,000 horsepower cars, and sitting next to me, this is James
Farnan here. I'm the operations manager. I kind of overlook and oversee these 2 cars, and I manage about 8 people on the team. Try to just keep everything running smoothly and in a fast-paced order.
Nice.
Yep.
Thank you guys for joining us. We're going to have, I'm sure, tons of questions. I fully expect a lot of our fans out there to recognize you guys and some of the awesome work that you guys have done with the Air Force, most notably in Formula Drift stuff. Anybody that's in the motorsports community knows that Air Force livery, knows that car, and knows you, Amanda. So I'm sure we'll see that as well. Also joining us is Chief Master Sergeant Strickland. Ma'am, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hello, everybody. My name is Chief Courtney Strickler, and I am the SCL over Reserve Recruiting, also known as the 367 RCG. So for me, I've been in for well over 20 years at this point. Before this amazing recruiting career that's been about 3 months long, I had been in many capacities on active duty, in the reserve, as a full-timer, as a part-timer, 16-year maintainer. I've been on F-15s, remotely piloted aircraft, and C-130s. I've also been an instructor and many other roles to include personnel and even some IT development. So thanks to the reserve, I have had a very broad and illustrious amount of experience that I look forward to sharing with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon. Oh, it's actually written on our thing. Could you explain what an SEL is? What's a senior enlisted leader? What is that?
So a senior enlisted leader is the name for our most senior enlisted chief positions. So it varies It varies across the board. It's very hard to,
Sure.
to wrap it up, but it's definitely the most senior enlisted position. It takes a while to
Okay.
get there and a lot of experience.
I know a lot of times if we ever have to find ourselves in a situation where you're talking to the SEL, you either are asking for a favor or maybe you're in trouble. But that's pretty high up there. When you get to the point where you're talking to that person, something's going to happen, and fingers crossed that it's in your favor, because if the SEL's involved, she's pulling some weight. So that's really
Absolutely.
that's
You
really
said
cool.
it.
Thank you so
You
much.
said it a lot better than I did. That's for sure.
No, that's okay. I mean, but that's the thing, is you have to do it. I talk about it. That's fine. But thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. All right, we've also
Thanks.
got
Happy to be
Senior
here.
Master. Awesome, thank you. Senior Master Sergeant Poulter and Tech Sergeant Greenlee. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves to us?
Okay, hi. I'm Senior Master Sergeant Poulter. I am the recruiting flight chief, so probably one of the arguably the coolest jobs in the Air Force. My job is to keep recruiters motivated to change lives. So love doing it. Before that, I was an airdrop loadmaster, so I used to open the doors and check everything, kick people out of planes, kick stuff, all kind of, backhoes, dump trucks, Humvees, all that stuff. So super cool. But loving here, in Youngstown and doing what we do. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Tech Sergeant Dana Greenlee. So currently,
Wait, hold on a second. This is Master Sergeant Select Dana Greenlee of 11.
Yay!
thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it's been the best day ever. Best day. So I'm currently an Air Force Reserve recruiter out here in Youngstown. Before that, I was a 14-year maintainer, more specifically hydraulics on C-130s. So yeah, that's where my heart was at, but it's good second here recruiting. So I love it just as much.
Cool. Very cool. Well, thanks for joining us. And I don't know how to do this other than just saying Major Dustin Ash and Major Mark. And see, now I'm looking at a sticky note. It's like way over here. Hold on. So can you read that? Because I can't read that. And your name tape's too small. And I don't want to mess your name up because I asked you before we started the show, and it's Ondove. But Major's
right on. You got it.
That's just how I'm going to respond for you guys.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves? Tell us why you guys are awesome and what you're excited about for today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us. I'm Major Dustin Ash. I'm a T6 instructor pilot, reservist here at Vance Air Force Base in beautiful Enid, Oklahoma. I did 12 years active duty. Primary aircraft was the C5, and then have been on the T6 now for about 8 years. I've been both part-time reserve as well as currently a full-time reservist, AGR. And then as my civilian job, I'm also a United Airlines pilot, but on a leave of absence from them right now.
Very cool. Major Ondo.
Yeah, so I'm Mark Ondo, same place here as Dustin Ash. So he's currently, you said, he's a full-time reservist. He's a reservist that works full-time. I'm more your traditional part-timer. Every squadron is a little bit different, but at the 5th Flying Training Squadron, our minimum was about 6 days a month where I put the suit on and I go and I instruct students to go become pilots for the Air Force. I started with the Air Force back in 2007 through officer training school after I graduated from college because I wanted to serve my country. And when it came time for our family to transition out, we just decided that I wasn't ready to hang up my green suit yet. I still wanted to be a part of that mission, but I also wanted to start my civilian career with a startup tech company that my friend had, and he needed some help. So I got out and did that full time as my job there as a chief operations officer. And then 6 days a month, I'm in flying airplanes. So it's a great opportunity. The flexibility that was spoken of before is definitely available. It's a great opportunity.
That's really awesome. It sounds like you have a lot of availability and options as far as pursuing stuff, personal life, and then also being able to wear the uniform and serve your country at the same time.
Absolutely.
That's really, really cool. I think that's going to be one of the main focuses today is that flexibility
Absolutely.
and that readiness to kind of be able to do both.
Yep.
So I've been hugging the mic.
Why even continue the show? I think we summed it up.
I summed it up in the first 45 seconds.
Oh, it was
just like
It was just muted, so you
Right.
guys didn't hear it. But so
I'm
I
still
guess
trying
we'll
to
have to do it.
I'm trying to figure out a way to recover from that. So while I still stumble over myself and figure that out,
Yes.
let's get to a couple different questions that we've got for our guests to help our audience out there in the
Absolutely.
big internets kind of get to know them a little bit better before we get to the part later in the show where we will go back and forth with you guys live and answer all your questions. Just make sure that when you post up those comments, if it is a question, put a Q before your comment. That way we can identify which ones we need to filter through, and we'll start answering all those questions because I'm sure you guys have tons of them. So obviously you send them in here on the show. We will answer them. You can also scan that QR code that you see on your screen, call the number you see on your screen, or visit airforce.com for all kinds of information. And that'll also get you in touch with recruiters who can help you answer any questions that we may or may not be able to get to today. So let's jump into it. What kind of question would you ask our wonderful panel of guests? Go for it.
Already so excited because I just like every time I come on the show, I learn something new. I've been in the Air Force 17 years, and every time I've been on the show, I'm like, what? We have that?
Yeah.
I'm like so excited. So I'm just curious how this partnership like came about with the Sorensen team and the Air Force, and like if you have any Air Force-ly duties that are involved in that.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, let's get a little background on how the beginning of Air Force Team Sorensen worked, and we'll go from there.
So, 2022, the Air Force had approached us asking us about partnership in Formula Drift. They've been partnered with the Formula Drift series for a while now, and they were looking to have 2 cars sponsored. So they kind of came to us, and we had chatted through. I do all the marketing for the team and all the sponsorships and partnerships, and so I pitched them the idea of doing a title sponsor in Pro as well as Pro Spec. Pro being the class that Branden drives in, and Pro Spec being the class that I drive in. Pro Spec competes at 4 rounds of 8 of the Formula Drift rounds, and Branden drives at 8 rounds, which are all the pro rounds. However, there are a lot of things that go hand in hand with the Air Force and how the Sorensen team operates, being that we have a operations manager just like the Air Force does. We have crew chiefs of the car. We have mechanics that work on the car. So Branden and I showcase a lot of the job opportunity careers within the Air Force through our social media platforms to the like-minded individuals of our fan base and the Air Force.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Branden, what do you do aside? Obviously, I know that I want to give you your spotlight, right? I know you drive. I've actually seen you drive. And I want to give you a little bit of chance to talk about what you do too. I didn't mean to ask that way. I'm like, what exactly do you do?
You're all good. Yeah, so I mean, basically, my sister and I almost run the entire team with the help of, everyone plays a huge role in it. I am the main person behind the engineering and the design of the cars themselves. So I do a lot of CAD engineering, computer-aided design, and a lot of stuff trying to improve the cars, design new things, and just try and be one step ahead.
Gotcha. And James, how about you?
So I basically just try to manage all the guys, make sure they have the knowledge they need to know about working on the cars, because there's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of little things on the cars that people don't know how to use them and how they work. Like, sure. Let's say if you take apart this brake rotor, there's shims behind each caliper that if you don't pay attention while you're taking it apart and you're putting it back together, you don't put the shims on. Now the calipers are rubbing against the rotors, and now we have to take it all back apart and figure out why is this happening. So I try to prevent all that stuff. Try to make processes for everybody. I don't really see myself as a boss. I more am like here for everybody else to help them and make their job easier.
As well as inventory too.
Yeah.
You
keep track of inventory. Make sure that at the end of every event, I do assessments on the cars and all the parts that we use, and I get them ordered immediately because we only have sometimes 2 weeks between rounds. Sometimes parts are coming from Thailand. Sometimes parts are coming from China. Sometimes parts are coming from all over. So we have to hurry up and get them in before the next event.
Gotcha. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you're describing are not only like the elements of doing the job of driving the car, and then there's the support elements that go around that, the teams that are around that. I wish we had somebody on this call, on this show right now, that knew what it was like to operate a high-performance piece of equipment with a team that supported it.
We should have got somebody.
Maybe pilots would have been cool.
Yeah, we should.
Does that sound anything like flying planes?
Absolutely.
So I got a
I would say
question. Go ahead.
Sure.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one of the first things that drew my attention to what James was just saying about some of the details that some people might not understand is just the precision that is involved with not only operating the cars or the airplanes, but as well as the precision and the details in maintaining them and keeping them running to their peak performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I 100% agree. What is probably one of the most high-performance cars that either of you, our majors on the call, have ever been in or experienced?
I'm not a big motorhead, so I can't give a whole lot. But and I've driven a few. I've driven, I don't know, Mustangs. I got to drive a Viper one time. When I was in pilot training, we had some students from some other countries that had some Vipers, and so we got to try those out. Always well within the speed limit. Nothing unsafe going on there. But
the
Air Force is a great way to be able to get out and fly some more high performance things, be able to enjoy, pulling some G forces, right? Making your body do things that it wouldn't normally be able to do. And with the motorsports, like we're talking about the rally, with the drift racing, there's a lot that's involved there. Similarly, some neat opportunities.
Yeah, that's very good for me. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I once had a temporary duty to Dubai, and that's where like a BMW over there or a Mercedes is like a Honda Civic here in the States. And so our car that traveled us to and from our job location for that TDY was a 4-seater Porsche, and so that was fun to cruise the streets of Dubai in that little thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So what stuck out to me, and I know we're talking about high performance cars, and I know you want to brag about your high performance cars. But
No. I can't brag. That right there, I think, is it still LS swapped?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's 1,000 horsepower BMW with a Chevy engine in it. Like, I don't get to brag about my high performance cars.
Okay.
Like, that thing smokes it.
Well, okay. No, but what stuck out to me especially was when you asked the chief earlier if you could describe senior enlisted leader, and everything that James was saying to me is that role in the Air Force. And we have different levels of it. Obviously, we have our NCOs, senior NCOs, and then our senior enlisted leaders. But taking the experts and making sure they've got everything that they need, that the budget's good to go, that the inventory is good to go, and putting all of these experts together and making them work as a team is not easy. Right. And so those roles in the Air Force are mirrored in what James does, I think.
Gotcha. Well, I'm really glad you're keeping me on track and putting in the military ties, because all of a sudden he started talking about Vipers.
I know, you got excited.
I'm real big into them, and I'm just like, yeah, let's talk about that. But absolutely. I will try to hold my inner motorsports nerd at bay and let the other motorsports nerds that are present take that show light. So over to, let's see, senior. Have you been in a jet? Have you been in like an actual high performance aircraft in the Air Force?
Like a fighter jet?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been in any. I haven't been in a fighter jet. So
okay.
C-17 is super cool though. I mean, it's got
17 is like Cadillac. Stuff. Yeah, 17 is the Cadillac in the sky. That 17 is it's pretty cushy. All right, Chief, have you ever had a chance to fly on a jet?
I have. I did receive an incident flight on my F-15, which was pretty incredible. And then a few years later, my husband actually got an incident flight in the exact same plane, which is like super odd for maintainers. But being stationed out of Las Vegas at the time and getting a flight out of Miami, because I was on temporary duty down there, was probably on the top 5 of my experiences in the military.
Nice.
That's awesome.
The reason I ask is I kind of want to get back over to Amanda and ask, because I know you've had a chance to fly on a jet with us. What's it like comparing that versus driving a race car?
Well, Branden and I actually both went up in the Thunderbirds.
Nice.
So that was super cool. I did 9.1 Gs. It was absolutely insane. I thought I was going to die, but I was fighting for my life. Branden, how was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, flying with the Thunderbirds was probably the gnarliest thing I've ever done in my life. I can't think of anything that's like crazier than that. But I pulled like somewhere around 8 Gs, and that was more than enough for me. I could
That's a
not
lot.
go any farther past that. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of strain on your body. The amount of skill it takes for those pilots to be able to continue to fly the aircraft while they're under that kinds of loads is like mind-boggling to me. But there are a lot of similarities, between racing the cars and the jets. There's a lot of precision between those two, and
Brandon
yeah, I mean,
actually is a private pilot himself. So.
I am.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
We actually
Is that like
took
a
our
recent?
logbook first, and
Okay,
we were able
cool.
to log a little bit of time in the Thunderbird. So
That's
haven't,
amazing.
I just,
So is that like a
I have
recent
few
thing?
hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
I
that a
just
recent
got
thing for
my
you guys to chase that down?
pilot. Yeah,
That's
I
really cool.
just
Well,
got my pilot,
congratulations.
like 2 months ago, I think.
Very cool.
We are
Well,
hiring in the Air Force Reserve. If you are
Yes.
interested, we're just going to give you a quick plug.
We
Absolutely.
can get you to log many more hours. Promise.
Absolutely.
And if you do something kind of like one of our majors on the call, you could fly airplanes while you're in the Air Force, and then as your weekly job from when you're not serving, he flies for a commercial airline. Like that's just, I mean, you talk about racking up hours. Tell me that you love what you do without telling me you love what you do. When you do the same thing in the Air Force that you do as a full-time career outside the Air Force in the reserves, you got to be passionate about it. So there's another similarity that I'm seeing here, and especially with the race team, that's a family effort, and you can tell it's a small, close-knit community because you got your drivers that are responsible for so much more, but there's so much cohesiveness and communication that happens there. Does anybody in uniform on our call on the show right now have a family story about something that being Air Force Reserves gives you the ability to do, that freedom is something that's unique to the reserves as far as family is concerned? I'll just let it to whoever wants to take that one. Not all at once, though.
While we're waiting, I'll go ahead and I'll let it rip. So
Sure,
like
go
I was
for it.
saying, it was 12 years active duty, and we had kiddos back to back. And for me and my husband, we were both active duty at the time. I was on a very high deployment tempo whenever I was on the remotely piloted aircraft as a maintainer. So having the kids back to back, it was time for us to choose a different path. So we went ahead and we got off of active duty, joined the reserve, went to a C-130 mission on a part-time status. I was able to go to culinary school and start my own business as a personal chef, which was awesome. My husband went into the elevator trade, so he was able to use that maintenance experience to cross over into the civilian sector. And then we were able to still, maintain the benefits of being with a military unit, continue to receive all the medical support that we needed, obviously with 2 small kids. And then when the kids had grown up a little bit, then it was time for me to go back into a full-time capacity. But overall, having the flexibility to choose a more part-time when I wanted to be home with the kids more or pursue school was really amazing, and probably one of the best opportunities that I've had personally. Active duty is amazing, but you don't have that level of flexibility that we absolutely have in the reserve. So that's my personal story.
Sure. And you did all that from the same location.
Same location
Right?
in Colorado.
Yep.
Beautiful
Yep.
Colorado.
So that's another perk about it is you can choose to serve where you're at and not have to move. Like I was about to make the analogy for the Sorensen team, but I don't think I could say that. You guys have to move around a lot because you do events all over the place. So it'd be like, imagine if you had to go all over the place no, they have to do that all the time. So, all right. What is one of the coolest Air Force experiences that you've had supporting an event? Any one of the 3 from the Sorensen team can answer this, but like, give me something that was like really cool that you can attribute to the fact that if it wasn't for the Air Force, probably wouldn't have happened. Minus going like negative or no, like the positive 9 Gs or whatever in a fighter jet or in a Thunderbird.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Thunderbird tops it, number one.
Sure.
But other than that, we were in Joint Base McGuire in New Jersey, and we were able to do some of see some of the canine training and get attacked by the dogs there.
Nice.
So that was a really cool experience, and we also got to play with the bomb disposal robots.
Yeah, the EOD. We went. I put on a bomb, and I was like running around on the bomb suit. It was so heavy. They knocked me over. Like, okay, get up, and I'm like, guys, I can't get up.
That's cool.
But we got a lot of fields, just trying them out. Even the C-17 that we let off in the air.
The C-130.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. We were able to send a C-130 into the air, and they let us play with the lift gate when it was parked into the hangar. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Well, it's pretty cool to think that like what can be really just sort of an awesome opportunity for somebody is what someone else does for a job, like 24/7. EOD bomb techs, right? They drive those robots around. They wear the suits. Obviously, the training is intense and it has to be taken super seriously. But the ability to kind of familiarize yourself with that kind of equipment and be part of that lifestyle day in and day out is really, really cool. And to be able to do that, I think is awesome. And all of those opportunities exist in all the different components in the Air Force, no matter whether it's reserve, guard, or active duty. Like, you don't have to just do one to have one of those jobs, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And not to sound too crazy here, like let's plug this, but they pay for you to get the training too.
True.
So I know we've been comparing a lot of things in how they're similar. Well, you could get the experience in the reserves and then use that training to apply it to work for a team like Sorensen Racing. So I think that's just so cool that there's so many transferable skills.
Yeah. All right, Sergeant Greenlee, I haven't picked on you in a while. I want to know what made you pick your job. Like, why do you do what you do in the reserves?
Okay, so do you want to hit on my recruiting job or as a hydraulic mechanic?
Well, first off, did you pick recruiting?
I did.
Okay, and were you a recruiter before or after a mechanic?
So I started out active duty as a hydraulic mechanic on C-130s. Did that for 8 years active, then switched to the reserve, still as a hydraulic mechanic, and then as an active reservist, now recruiting.
But why did you pick the hydraulic mechanic?
Yes.
Initially? So walk me through not only the process of why you picked it coming in as active, but also why you made the decision to kick over to reserves, and then walk me through the transition to like recruiter. I want your whole story.
Yep.
You want everything. Okay.
Yeah, start from the beginning.
Okay, so I knew that I wanted to join the Air Force probably in 10th grade. And I grew up, I was my dad's son that he never had. I always say that he had 3 girls. I was the one out in the garage turning wrenches all the time with him. I loved it, everything about it. That's just what I wanted to do. And then when I found out I could do that in the Air Force and work on planes, I was sold. Like, that was like a dream come true. So I chose to do that, and I chose active duty because I grew up in a tiny little town and I was just ready to get out and see the world.
Yep.
So active duty, 8 years, and then I found out about the Air Force Reserve. So I had no idea that the reserve was even a thing until quite a few years into my career. And then I decided to get the best of both worlds, so to speak. So I was still a hydraulic mechanic in the Air Force Reserve. And then I decided to pursue my career in fitness. So I became a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, swim instructor, water aerobics, everything. And so I did both of those for about 4 or 5 years. And then I decided that I missed being uniform full-time. And being in the reserve, I found out that there were active opportunities. And then when I found out recruiting was one, I, decided that was only perfect because during my fitness career, I was already recruiting. So all my clients, they knew everything about the Air Force because I just love it so much. And so I was always kind of pushing, especially the younger people, to, take an interest and learn about it. So then that's how I got into recruiting, because I was like, I might as well do it full time. I already am.
Yeah.
Also, another perk, being from small town in Pennsylvania, I spent pretty much all of my career in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is pretty far from Pennsylvania. So one of the perks, choosing your location, where you want to serve in the reserve, was definitely big for me.
Yeah. No, that's
Awesome.
really cool. You mentioned something earlier when you were talking about it, that you were active duty and found out about reserves. That's actually surprising how many people join the military and don't really know a whole lot about the other versions of their service, right? So you have people typically think like you go into active duty and then you have to, do your active duty stuff. And then they get in and they find out like, whoa, then you can do guard, you can do reserve, you can do all these other different options. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like that's 100% the entire purpose of this show is to educate people. They can ask their questions, inform people, let them know that like you can go in directly as reserve if you don't want to necessarily take the chance that you're going to be put somewhere away from family and friends. Like you can stay where you're at, you can pick your job, you can do all that stuff. So that's really cool that was kind of the way that you were able to process and go through your military experience. But also kudos to being able to see an opportunity and then seize it, right? Because like a lot of people are afraid of that change and they're kind of on autopilot. They'll go an entire career and be like, well, I didn't really ever pull the trigger on that. I didn't really want to. I didn't feel comfortable with it. But you actually saw something you wanted and you went for it. So props. That's really cool. All right. I think we got like maybe a little bit more time, but we're kicking it over to the question and answer soon. Let's flip the script for you guys. Anybody, any of our guests, you can ask me and Sergeant Patterson whatever you want.
Oh.
Yeah, I just put you on the spot. I didn't tell her we were going to do that.
If this is truth or dare, I choose dare.
Oh, snap. I think I should just leave now. Like, she out-parties me. All right, anybody got anything?
So, I don't really have...
Yeah, everyone, please. Yes, go for it.
So this wasn't as much for Sergeant Cerny. I want to know about the Sorensens. Like, what gets you into drifting? Like, how does that, how do you even get into that? Like, that's I guess a family. I imagine your dad did it at one point, and then it goes from there. Or
yeah. So we've been in and surrounded by racing our entire lives. We started racing bicycles when we were 3-4 years old. Went into go-karts, and just kind of worked our way up the chain. And we saw the opportunity in drifting as a growing sport, and there's a lot of potential in it. So as we were growing, probably 7-8 years ago, we recognized drifting and we saw the rate that it was growing. And, we kind of decided that would be our best route if we wanted to continue this dream of driving race cars for a living, right?
Sure.
And, after the first time I stepped in a drift car, I was like, you know what, this is probably some of the most fun I've ever had behind the wheel, because it's you can have a lot of fun with it. You can add your own flair, your own style to it, unlike a lot of other aspects of racing where it's just kind of like monkey see, monkey do. If you want to win, you're gonna be right there, trying to be just one little step ahead of everybody, but everyone follows in the same line. Where in drifting, everyone has their own independent style. You can use whatever car you want, whatever motor you want, and there's a lot of personal touch to it.
Nice.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So James, question for you. From your perspective, how important is teamwork, and how do you see it from where you stand?
It has a big role in everything. I think the biggest thing in racing is communication. Without the communication between the drivers and me and the crew chief and me and our team, everything would just fall apart. Like, while the cars are on the track, we're in the hot pits. We don't get to see everything. We're not watching the races really. We're just sitting back waiting for a call to make changes on the cars, or the car crashed and it broke. So then we got to call a 5-minute or, figure out what we need to fix, pull out what spare boxes or what corner box to fix the car. What else?
I'm going to butt in real quick,
Okay.
But what he was saying about the 5-minute call, whenever we're in the middle of Formula Drift competition, if we mess up and something breaks, we only have 5 minutes to fix the car. So we have 5 minutes to fix the car before it has to be back on the track again. So we essentially have another car built in boxes, and so we can unbolt something and bolt it back up and be ready to go within that 5 minutes.
Yeah, and they're not talking about like changing a tire. Like 5 minutes, you can change massive frame components, entire sections of suspension, and like where most people would struggle to get a couple of lug nuts off in 5 minutes, these guys are changing out half the front end of a car and getting it back on the road, doing 100 miles an hour into a corner completely sideways. That's pretty wild. So I'm going to kick that same exact question to flip-flop it over to the majors, sirs, and see what your perspective on teamwork is and how important it is to what you guys do every single day.
I'll start by saying this. So we're currently in aircraft right now that we don't have people who wear the uniform who do our maintenance for us. We have both operated in that before on previous aircraft. But I would say the biggest piece, kind of, again, what James just said, was the communication piece. One thing that we do often and have done together is we fly in formation together. And that formation piece is all about communication. Words matter. The timing of words matter. And we don't have the, what's the word? We don't have the privilege of being able to pull off on the side of a shoulder to, I wish we had an airplane in a box that we could just kind of get and go in 5 minutes. But if something happens, there is no pause button. And so communication is huge when it comes to the way that we operate, even as close as 10 feet next to each other in formation. That is a huge piece of the teamwork to make sure that the briefing is clear. Everyone understands what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it. And then there's also the debriefing component to that communication piece when we talk about teamwork, about, hey, what could we have done better next time so it's not so confusing or we misinterpret things, especially when we're that close with each other in the air. So,
sure.
Yeah. So before the interview, Dustin and I were talking about kind of the teamwork component, and there's so much that goes into it. Just for us to go walk out to an airplane and then go fly it. We get to the airplane, sure. We've already talked with the student pilots. If we're in formation, we've already given a long brief talking about how the profile is going to be, how we're going to execute the different maneuvers, basing that on all the rules that have already been written by other people before. We get out to the jet, and there's a logbook of all the maintenance records that we have to look through, and they have been meticulously taken care of already, starting way early in the morning, hours and hours and hours before we showed up. Those maintainers got out there and they made sure that everything was ready to go. They made sure that it was unbuckled. They made sure everything was clear and clean. If there had been rain or there had been snow, they made sure all the ramps were looking good. You get the entire airport personnel involved with that, base ops managers, and then we have people behind the scenes making sure that we're current. We may have all of our medical staff. We have flight physiologists. We have folks to do our dental to make sure that if we go up in the air really high with a different pressure and you've got something wrong with your tooth, it'll explode. So there's so much a component in all those jobs. There's an active duty piece and there's also reserve component piece. And like they were talking about before, is that active duty is a very different beast. You sign on and you kind of go where you're told. With the reserve, you have more component of control. You can be with one unit for 20-something years. And that's a really neat opportunity. You still get to deploy. You still get to do all the pieces that are required by the nation. And you're ready to serve at a moment's notice, but you have a little more control of what you do. Right. I think the last thing is kind of neat, and I think Chief Strickler mentioned this a little bit before, but there's a long-standing tradition in the Air Force where on the side of the airplane, they put the name, every pilot gets their name put on the side of the airplane, but also the crew chief, the senior member taking care of that jet gets to put their name on side of it. So when she got to fly that F-15, her name was on the side of that airplane. And there's a lot of pride and motivation that comes from that. And that's a really cool component.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I actually kind of want to also turn that same question to Sergeant Greenlee and ask you, because people that don't know what hydraulic mechanics is, obviously aside from just the simple operations of hydraulics, but all the different platforms that those play into. But it's interesting that you mentioned that too, because when you're looking at all those checklists and all those things and all the people that have a role in that, have you ever been able to look at something and be able to tell, okay, that person I can tell is reserve, or I can tell that person is active duty, or that person's guard? Can you tell by the quality of work what someone's component is?
So that's a great question. But for me, I mean, I can't, really tell a difference because we all have the same training. And I've been integrated, as active duty, working with reservists, and as a reservist, working with active duty. And we all kind of, are on the same level. I would say one thing that stands out with a reservist is because they have other experiences outside, so they can bring other perspectives, to the mission. Yeah. But as far as, maintenance skills, we all receive the same training and, have the same end goal.
Gotcha. Absolutely. And how does hydraulic mechanics play a part in that team role?
So as a hydraulic mechanic, we're considered specialists. So we have, the crew chiefs, like the chief, who do the overall maintenance, and then we break it down a little bit further into each specialist. So there's going to be electricians, engine mechanics, and then as far as hydraulics, we take care of basically anything that's moving on the plane, all the flight controls, the brakes, brake lines, everything like that.
Yeah, a lot of components, a lot of pieces Absolutely. That are moving there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And it's never just one person
right.
working on an aircraft. There's a team. There's someone like James making sure that everybody has what they need, and then, different people that specialize in different things. So it's
for sure. Well, cool. I have been seeing thousands now, hundreds of comments, thousands of comments streaming up. So we have been selecting them kind of throughout the show right now. Mm-hmm. Just as a reminder for everybody out there watching, if you've got a question, throw it in the chat, put a Q before it, and we'll start getting to them. But I think this is about the point in the show where we get to the question and answer section where we answer your questions live. So for our guests on the show right now, if you have an answer to it, obviously if we kind of feel like it's tailored to somebody, or if one of our people out on the internet asks us a question and they ask it specifically, obviously we'll let whoever is. Right. But if you know the answer, jump on it. It's no priority here, so have at it. Also, if you just surprising me like that, just throws it up. I'm like, all right, well, we're not doing a question. I'm doing a QR code, airforce.com, and then there's no phone. Oh, there it is, down in the bottom left-hand corner. So if you have questions, see. We did. We got these new cool thermos things.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm trying to do the influencer thing. Am I doing it right? There we go. Okay. See?
It's just your hand. All right. If we're not able to get to your questions, use the QR code, and you can also get on airforce.com or call that 800 number, and we can get those questions answered for you. So let's get to our first question that we've got, and we'll see who can take the first one. I saw somebody at the very beginning of the show said first comment. Props to you. There's always that trophy.
Good.
Go for it. Do you guys do direct commission? Well, we only have one person on the call with recruiting, but go for it.
Yeah, so I can answer that. So I was the Officer Sessions Program Manager down at the headquarters building, working for Chief for the last couple of years. We do direct commission for all health professions, JAG, and attorneys, and we're actually going through the process right now of setting up cyber. So if you have cyber credentials, then that's coming into play right now too. So definitely look at it, apply. The cyber stuff is still kind of working its way out, but I've been out of the seat for a couple months, so it might be there. But yes, we do direct commission. Now, direct commission doesn't mean you don't have to go to officer training school. You still do have to go to officer training school.
Right.
Depending on what kind of direct commission you're going to get, depends on the length that you're going to have to go to officer training school. But you'll definitely be going as some type of lieutenant. So, or I guess you could be going higher if you're really skilled. But
sure, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, next question.
Any enlistment housing for families? I think they mean, is there housing for your families and entitlements for your housing?
If you're married.
Yes, if you're married.
Yeah.
Or have dependents,
you have kids, right?
Children.
If you have kiddos.
On base housing, as well as you can choose to live off base and get BAH, basic allowance for housing.
Yeah. Let's see, show of hands from all of our uniforms. Who has lived on base housing? Yep. So a decent number of us. It's not too bad. It's actually, it's really stress-free. Like, it's really nice because you just basically, they take your basic allowance that and that's one of the other perks is they give you an allowance for that housing on top of your base pay. Mm-hmm. So it basically just takes that and washes it almost like as an apartment, and your housing is taken care of for you. So it's really, really cool.
And different installations have different options as well. So.
Housing is also for single in the dorms, 100%. Yep. Mm-hmm. If you're enlisted and you join and you are at tech school or you're at your first duty station, I think is active duty. Actually, that's a good question. How's that work for reserves? So you guys would still live in your house or your apartment or wherever you would live otherwise, and then you would just do your cert, you would do duty. You don't actually live in the dorms, correct?
Right. So after basic training in tech school, there's a major difference between active and reserve. So active duty, they're going to their first duty station and most likely living in the dorms, if they're single. But for reservists, when they get back from their training, they're going back to, their house or apartment that they had before.
That's convenient.
Okay, yeah.
If that's something you're looking for, that's super convenient. I can see the draw to that. Obviously, my path was different. I was not single when I joined, so I was able to go immediately into on-base housing, which was really cool. But if I had joined reserves, I'd have just gone home to the apartment or the home that I lived in with my family and kind of resume normal life and then go back to my weekend duty when I needed to. That's really cool.
Yeah. But so then the housing entitlements are going to be different as well for that. If you're not.
Yeah, one thing I just mentioned real quick, if you don't mind, is just one of the big draws that we have that brings in a lot of people. If you have like a family member that you don't want to leave, like I left my little sister when I went to active duty, but a lot of people have like grandparents and parents that they don't want to leave for an extended period of time. So that's one of the huge draws, I'd say, in recruiting that brings people to the reserve over active duty. But both are great. We love them both. So definitely check it.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to go live or go do your reserve time where you already live. You can choose to get accepted into a unit that's somewhere else, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you'll also get paid for those trips. So if you are an enlisted member, master sergeant or below, then you'll absolutely you'll get paid if you need to travel to go pursue that mission set.
Because I know sometimes people are hesitant to leave home, and so they may join the Air Force to get out of their hometown, but they don't want to get out completely. So maybe, do I want to go move here? I don't want to take a risk and just not be able to find a job. So let me do my reserve time there and get a feel for it and see if I like the area and all those things. So it's a lot of flexibility, as we've said.
Yeah.
So.
Chief, do you have personal experience with that? Is that what you're raising your hand
for?
for?
Yes. I was trying very hard to get out of Plano, Texas. I will tell you that right now. And so being able to have the flexibility once my family situation changed was very important to me. We did want to settle down for a little bit in Colorado to be close with family. That's when I was able to do part-time reserve. And then when, like I said, the kids got older, I was able to now get back on an active duty status. So this flexibility of supporting how you need to be supported as well is 100% probably my favorite part of being in the reserve.
That's really cool. Well said. All right, let's get to the next question. What do we got? Hello from Pensacola, Florida. Is the Air Force looking for RNs? Yes. Also, does COT still exist? What's COT?
So COT is commissioned. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Commissioned officer training.
Yeah, so commissioned officer, it's OTS for people who have more of a higher degree background. So medical chaplains, they'll go through COT instead of OTS.
Gotcha. Okay. And absolutely, we are looking for RNs. Our health professions recruiters would love to talk to you.
In fact, now that you made that comment, they're probably going to be like, hey,
what's up? We hear you're, hopefully you're an RN. Otherwise, they're going to get all excited and come chasing.
Like, oh.
So yes, absolutely, 100%.
No, but they're looking. I know we're not in speed round yet, so lightning round. So I can say this, but not only is the Air Force and probably the Reserve recruiting RNs who are civilians, but if you are active duty and you become an RN or want to become an RN, there's programs for that as well.
Cool. Yep. Let's see. Do we have any questions for Team Sorensen in there? Or maybe we can get another one for somebody else, and then you can scroll
I did see one
list.
that said, "How do you get the podcast job?"
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you.
You have to have.
You've got to fight people.
You
That's how I got here.
She did have to fight people. Y'all notice that Master Sergeant Reed isn't here anymore?
He's
still recovering from his injuries. He's not. He just is working on the other side of his house, and it's really difficult for him to make his way over here.
But sorry, I'm just going to say that our job is actually pretty cool. And it's not just podcasting, it's public affairs. So I started out as graphic design, and then I was a radio DJ, and then I did news and broadcasting, and just lots of stuff that is multimedia focused. And so they have that in the reserves as well. And I know a lot of my friends who do that in the reserves then also do that full time as civilians, and you get a lot of cool opportunities to go places. When you're in this uniform, it can take you a lot of places that you may not have had access to before.
Yep.
And it's just really helping you build those experiences and get that experience to apply to your civilian job too. So anyway, that's my little plug for our job.
We threw the comment up and then it went away. But that's okay. How does an individual get into Sorensen Motorsports from a driving perspective or even maintenance crew? So what would that look like for somebody that would be interested in getting into motorsports, maybe even specifically your team?
Well, most of the time people just try and reach out to us directly and see what they can do to help. But as of right now, we have a really solid team. We're not really looking to bring any more people on, but that's kind of James' department right here. Between Amanda and I, we really try and focus on driving, and James has helped us a lot with letting us focus on driving and him kind of taking care of everything else. So,
but I think that there's a lot of teams out there that you could easily just show up and kind of talk to those teams at the track, or just the motorsports community is always kind of arms wide open type of community. Showing up and attending the events and just starting to ask around is kind of the best way to go about it.
I also think that you should try to focus on bringing something to the table that is important for the team that maybe they're lacking. That is a good way to get on a team in this sport.
Yeah, is to have a specialty or some kind of experience or just a desire to do it, really.
For sure, have something to give, right? It's funny because when you answer that, you're like, we're pretty good right now. It sounds like when you see somebody like go up to somebody else and they're like, hey, could I take you out for like a drink or something? And they're like, nope, I have a boyfriend. That sounded like that. I was like, I'm spoken for. Like, we're solid. We're good.
They're good.
So I can appreciate that. I've seen what that looks like when people kind of, because they see the fun, they see that family element. They see what kind of power and what kind of connection that people in motorsports have, especially the teams. And when they see Team Sorensen doing their thing out there, it's a very attractive thing, right? They want to be part of that. There's another organization that we're actually talking about. It's the military, right? So this is the same thing.
Like when I was at the base and we did the video that you just showed at the beginning, we did a video shoot revealing the partnership at the base. And it's crazy because you see how the crew guys are interacting with each other, and the airmen, how they interact with each other, and the maintenance guys, how they interact with each other. Same concept when we were at the Air Force Base, the Thunderbird ride along. Like each pilot had their own little thing with one of their crew guys. Like they had like a handshake, or they had it was just such a similar environment to how we are with our team.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad you were able to take that, because that's exactly what I was going to say. The similarities is almost identical. You see that small, tight-knit community and you kind of want in because it's sort of an exclusive opportunity. It's the same thing, 100%. Except for we're never going to tell you that we're good. No offense. I know you guys have your like restraints, right? So you have to do what you got to do, and you can't house everybody, right?
But we're like, come on
in, let's go. Like if you want, I got 4 different dudes that want to talk to you about and getting you a job in the Air Force. So, all right, next question.
What do we got here?
I don't know, but this one's yours.
3.9 GPA. Dang. Okay. Master's degree. Will the Air Force allow me to pursue linguistics? I want my GI Bill to pay for law school and some help paying off current loans. Okay, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But yes, linguistics, especially if you already know a language or have the aptitude for it, they'll have you take a test, and you have to, you'll take the ASVAB, which we've talked quite a lot about, but then there is another language proficiency.
Is it the D-Lab?
D-Lab.
Yeah. They still do it? I'm getting a thumbs up from a recruiter on the other side of the room.
And so sometimes it's, a little bit of maybe what but it's really seeing your potential to be able to learn a language. And so if you can do that, then heck yeah, come on over. We will take you. And then GI Bills, paying for law school and all those things. There's obviously some limits on what schools you can attend and how much is paid for and all those things. But talk to a recruiter for show, because they will be able to help you out. Maybe there's someone in here that can answer that too, or we might have recruiters on the line.
I got a recruiter. I'm stashing him in the corner. He's right over there. He's giving me a thumbs up when I said the D-Lab, and he was just like, yep, that's it. And now he's just whispering to somebody else. So next question. Also, I saw Team Sorensen. We came back out of it. I was like, totally came back out to this shot without a warning. All of a sudden, it was like smiling like there was an inside joke going on. We do it all the time, except for when I go to full screen. That's when I'm back here like chugging water or, you know, adjusting something. So sorry, it's just luck of the draw. You get coming back whenever I come back. So I could just like switch out. That's that. So Kevin Harger, you can join up to 40.
Yeah, that's a common question we get.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Up to 40.
As long as you head out to basic before your 40th birthday, you're good. Under the wire.
Yep. Unless, is there any exceptions in the reserves?
Yes. So as long as they're enlisted before their 40th birthday, so they can be enlisted, their contract has started, and they may not go to basic training for, you know, a couple months after their 40th birthday. So as long as they sign that Form 4 before they're 40, then they're good to go.
Cool. So even more flexibility. This is starting to sound a little unfair. As a Reg Af guy, as a traditional Air Force full-timer, starting to sound a little biased. I'm a little jealous at this point.
Right.
All right, next question. Is there a way to waive medical discharge? I was a year and a couple months from retirement from active duty.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head, but there is no harm in talking to a recruiter and ask the question, because waivers will have changed. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the way to go there is just talk to someone, put the paperwork in, and see. Then I'd also recommend maybe a BCMR. So I don't know what it stands for, but it's something Bureau of Corrections of Military Record or something like that. If you can get them to change something in there, then that might be a way to get back to. So if everything's healed, go ahead and resubmit. Have the Surgeon General office take a look at it. If they say you're good, then come on over.
For sure. And we actually, one of the cool things about this show is after it airs live, the entire show gets archived on YouTube and on Facebook, and you can go back and watch it. And I don't remember how many shows ago it was, but we did a show in the past that was all things medical waivers. And we had tons and tons of questions. And there were so many different examples where people were really surprised to find out what things can be waived and what things they thought for sure they'd never be able to join, any kind of medical condition or something that they thought they were just not going to make it through, you know, the process, and they would get disqualified. But they went and talked to a recruiter, and that guy or girl was able to get them into the Air Force with a medical waiver. So if you have that kind of situation, get a hold of a recruiter and talk to them about your specific situation. Go in armed with as much information about your medical background as possible, and they will most likely be able to provide some surprising insight on what your opportunities are. So definitely go talk to them, because that process has also changed, and they're aggressively looking at waivers for getting people with medical conditions in.
Right, because that seems to be a common question in ours as well. Asthma, ADHD, things like that. And my opinion is it never hurts to ask. Because that just shows that you really want it and you're willing to do the work. And if you're willing to put in the effort, it's easier to get a yes if you're willing to work and get the documents and everything. So
for sure,
it doesn't hurt.
And
to
you guys
ask.
are really, you're super accurate that we're getting a lot more medical waivers approved that when I was a recruiter would not get approved. So definitely, you know, get submitting.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, dope. Next question.
Is there any way to get a guaranteed pilot slot? Ooh.
Major to sirs.
So
that's all you. I'm gonna ping that one off to you guys. What's that like?
So to answer the question, short answer is yes. If you're active duty, you have to compete for it via one of the commissioning sources. The nice thing about OTS is that if you go the Reg Af OTS route, then what ends up happening is you're competing for that pilot slot just to get an OTS slot. So when you go to OTS, you've already got a guaranteed pilot slot when you're finished with OTS. If you're ROTC or Academy, you're still competing. For the reserves, if you get hired by the reserves and they send you to pilot training, guess what? You've got a pilot slot. So it's already, it's a guaranteed slot, but it is yours to lose based on how well you perform at pilot training.
Right.
Gotcha. So short answer, yes.
Oh, wow. So that's another kind of way to have a little more certainty, is to go the reserve way.
Yep.
Interesting.
Next, does the Air Force recruit for Space Force? Yes. Next question. I love those ones. Easy yes or no's. Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like her little model thing up here.
Air
Force on one side, Space Force on the other.
Space Force.
Absolutely. Okay. As the Space Force grows, we will 100% start to see more delineation between the two. But for right now, because they're so close and the Space Force is so new, anyone you talk to, Space or Air Force, should be able to point you in the right direction, Space Force. So you would not look ridiculous walking up to an Air Force recruiter and asking them about Space Force stuff. So do that. Absolutely. And if they don't know the answers, send them our way. We'll learn.
Yeah,
them.
me specifically.
Yeah.
No, I won't. Could you do a live based on direct commission, more specifically for healthcare professionals?
We did, yeah. We actually have
did.
done that one. That was number 3.
It wasn't me though, so.
Yeah, I think that was early. So to answer your question, we actually did one.
Was it me?
Obviously, because it's in the past, we're not able to answer your particular questions about that topic live, but there were a ton of questions answered in that one. And then the resources that we have, Major, you're going to have to pop it up. I don't see it over here on mine. Oh, there it is, QR code. Hey, I did it myself this time.
Oh, look at you.
I got my own little
And you didn't play the wrong video this time.
I got my own little button deck here that I have to push stuff. But apparently, it doesn't have a mute button on it. Otherwise, I'd have figured that out at the beginning of the show. Ugh. Anyway, so the QR code and that 1-800 number and airforce.com are great resources if we don't get to your question, or if you watch one of our previous live streams where we hit one of the topics that you're interested in and you have a particular question that wasn't necessarily addressed in that show, use these resources because those things will point you at a recruiter who can answer that question for you.
Absolutely.
So short answer, yes, and then also a little of elaboration.
Next question. What is the difference in active reserves and reserves? It could be misunderstanding, but it sounds like there are different reserves options. So
Great question.
Yes, I'll give a quick answer and then they can elaborate. But essentially, reserves is more of that part-time status, but sometimes you can go active reserves. You're still reserves, but you're activated or essentially on active duty orders. So you get more benefits that are associated with being active duty.
And this is a perfect time to quote our brand new commander for Air Force Recruiting Service Headquarters, General Amrine. We were at a marketing conference last week and I heard him use this term twice. He said, help correct me to 100%. I really like that because that's a cool way of getting somebody in a leadership position to ask for assistance and not put themselves outside of correction, but also let you know that they're already doing most of the work. So correct us to 100% if we're off on that one. Any of our reservists.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. So we have a ton of different opportunities. So we have an IMA opportunity as well, which means you don't have to serve the 30 days or your 14 days spread out. You could do it all at once. So you can serve as an IMA in whatever capacity is needed to back up that role. There's also an ART, which is going to be your civilian during the week, but you're still a reservist. So we have to have this active component backing up the rest of the reserve. So we have, close to 70,000 members, and we have, roughly 6,000 AGRs, which is going to be members on active orders. And I can't speak to the number of ARTs, but we have a huge population of civilians, ARTs, IMAs, and traditional reservists. So you truly can choose your own adventure, as I like to say.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next question. How all are they, the kids?
How old are the Sorensen racing team?
Oh, they're not kids. They're probably better drivers than all of us. All right. How old are you guys? Help us out.
Amanda, you start.
I'm 20.
I am 19 years old right now.
Do I need to say my age?
No,
I'm 31.
definitely not. See,
Believe it or not,
I was hoping. I was going to say, you look.
James is like,
Yeah, I see you holding it down. I see you holding it down for those of us that aren't in their 20s anymore. Appreciate you. But
let's not go around the room and answer that question, okay?
Absolutely not. But also, mad props. The way I've seen the way you guys drive. I've seen you in competition. insane. I mean, obviously anybody, you could Google Sorensen and just watch a video and you'll see it's insane what these guys can do with cars, and just mad props that you guys can do that so young, because look back in the day, it's like any other extreme sport though, seriously, if you think about it, like think like skateboarding, right? Tony Hawk back in the day, you know, he'd pull off some crazy trick and everybody lost their mind.
Yeah.
And now, you know, you got
I'd still lose
teenagers
my
doing
mind.
that same thing, right? We got teenagers doing the same tricks now. And the pros, the top of the line pros, are pulling off things that are just absolutely impossible. And yet Tony is still doing his thing at his age. Like, that's just wild. So mad props to you guys for being able to what you do and setting the bar so much higher every single time you guys go out and get behind the wheel. It's really cool. And at your age, that's just nuts. So
Well, and it's similar
really
with
cool.
our pilots too. I'm sure they were pretty young when they became pilots as well. Not that you're not young now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, how old were you all when you became pilots for the Air Force?
I was a little bit older. I was in my typically it's around the mid-20s. Most people become pilots. There's actually, we were talking about age waivers. You know, we have a few folks who are going through pilot training right now that we're instructing that are up in their upper 30s, mid upper 30s. So there's some waivers allowable for that too.
Okay, very cool.
I started in 2008. I was one of those candidates at the time. In order to go to a pilot training slot, you had to start by your 30th birthday. I came in completely backwards, did civilian flying first, and then joined active duty. And so I started in October of 08 for pilot training and turned 30 in November of 08, right at the cusp of the deadline. So
Nice. There's a deadline right there for you.
Yeah.
Loving it. How about Sorensen team? How old were you guys when you started?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, so we started when we were like right around 5 years old racing bicycles, and then from there we worked our way up. So we've been surrounded by racing and motorsports basically our entire lives, but we started drifting right around the age of 12, 13 years old.
Jeez, that's nuts. I've got a 13-year-old, and he gets to start learning how to drive, period, next year. My 16-year-old knows how to drive. And just the thought of him kicking any of my rear-wheel drive cars out sideways terrifies me. So,
My daughter is almost 16, and she is terrified of driving probably more than I'm terrified of her driving. So it's been a very slow process.
yeah.
My
Okay.
12-year-old doesn't even want to bring in the trash cans out of the dark. Like, you guys, I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes.
A little bit of fearless. Got that.
I think we need to have your parents on the show, and they talk about how they inspired you.
No, because I know exactly what happened. All of us old people would be like talking about how scary it is to have kids doing crazy things, and it would take away from all the limelight. And that's definitely Team Sorensen right now.
That's
so,
true.
all right, next question.
Interested in hearing more about Air Force training that converts over to college credit. Ooh, that's
Does
exciting.
anybody have Air Force training that converted over to college credits? Any experience there?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that because that's one of our major benefits when we, sit down with someone and go over education benefits. So the awesome thing about the Air Force is we have the community college of the Air Force, and whether people join for college or not, you're automatically enrolled into that degree plan. So in basic training and in tech school, you're earning college credits for the training that you're there getting paid to do anyway. So it's pretty sweet.
Nice. Very cool. Great answer. And next question. I see you scrolling like a madman over there. Just going through new questions, adding stuff to the queue.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see you. What ASVAB score do I need to get a civil affairs job? Sergeant China, you got Google or something real quick with that one? Can you look that up? Because I don't know that one off the top of my head. Civil affairs. Unless you're talking public affairs.
Unless she means Army, which
could be, yeah,
which is not us.
That's not us, yeah.
But if you
Don't worry
meant
about
public
that.
affairs, which is what our job is, 75?
No, it's not that high.
It's high though. It's one of the highest.
It's high.
It's one of the highest.
70 maybe?
Some of the
It's
smart-
70 or 75. I'm telling you, or 72.
I want to say it's like 73.
It's like 72 or 73 because I remember when we merged, one of the things was or consolidated, that our photographers had a lower one, and so a lot of people struggled to get when we merged with public affairs.
Are you saying we're better than photographers?
No.
Next question, please.
That is not. No. Well, I've done it all, so.
Yeah, no kidding. What's the difference between reserve and guard? Another great question. All right, I will let one of our reserve experts answer that one. You guys will know best. I'm sure you've done your homework.
So I guess I can answer it. The big difference between the reserve and the guard is that the guard is state funded and the reserve is federally funded. So a lot of times if you end up moving somewhere and you want to move to a different base, so say I live in Ohio and I need to move to Georgia, which I just did, or I came from Georgia to Ohio, I can actually just go and work at a base down there versus when you are in the guard, you are attached to that guard unit, to that guard state. So you'll have to, if you find another position, you'll have to go through the process again with it. So
sure, gotcha. I'm not sure if you guys caught the comment, just the random 72, but that's Cameron K, which I'm guessing is Sergeant Keating from the other room.
Yep.
He looked it up for us real quick. Public Affairs ASVAB score is 72.
72.
Sergeant Patterson did it too.
Didn't I say 72? I'm pretty sure I said I mean, I said a lot of numbers, but
we could rewind
72
the tape.
was in there.
Too bad it's not recorded. We would never be able to know. We'll never know. Next question.
Till later.
In a few words, describe Air Force culture, and then we'll kick it to the Sorensen team to describe motorsports culture. Okay, so I think this one can be, it's actually, so I'm glad you picked that one because I saw it. Mm-hmm. This is kind of a loaded question, but at the same time, I think the answer is as varied as the experiences of the person answering it. So
Absolutely.
It's up to the person who's giving you that answer. Air Force culture is unique to every single person who experiences it because it's going to be different everywhere. You're going to have places where the culture may seem like it's better or may seem like it's worse than others, but it is what you make it. That is one of the coolest things about Air Force culture is you're such a huge impact of your direct environment that you can change the culture if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to make it better, you can make it even better than it already is. So I will.
That's your answer?
Let's turn it over to Chief. I'll turn it over to Chief real quick, and then I want to hear Sergeant Patterson's answer.
I don't know.
What would you define as the culture of Air Force right now, ma'am?
So I think you made a great point when you said it's up to each person, but for me, it's family. It's family outside of family. So what the Air Force has given me is everything good in my life personally, but it's also when you go out to the civilian sector, you do understand that the Air Force brings something that's just a little bit bigger, a little bit different. It's more time off. It's more when things are going on. It's people that are going to care and reach out on a different level than I've ever experienced. When I did try to go to the civilian sector, I sure did miss the level of security and family and pride in what we do, work hard, sometimes play hard. And so all of that brings a sense of unity that it's pretty impossible to find anywhere else.
Yeah. Sergeant Patterson, how about you?
I'm just like obsessed with her dog. I want to see the puppy.
Same as Jeff. I'm sorry. He's a problem.
No.
He's a light.
We love
he's not a
doggos.
problem. Jeff is not a problem. He's a good boy.
I love that his name's Jeff. I just wanted to pop up, and he was like, "My name's Jeff."
I'm like, oh, they're saying Jeff.
People are like, I'm just yelling at Jeff. They're like, is that your husband? I'm like, no, it's the dog. It's fine.
That's awesome.
That's funny. No, so for me, the Air Force culture is very, like you said, unique. And I think we forget when we're in the Air Force how much of a family and a team it is and how much you can rely on other people. There's a lot of accountability in the Air Force. And I would say that you can't guarantee that every single person who's going to come into the Air Force is going to be a good person, but chances are pretty high that they're going to be, and they're going to be somebody who is dedicated to what they do and very knowledgeable. And that's what I've experienced throughout all the different ranks. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions, no matter what branch of service you're in the Army or the Marine Corps, there's going to be exceptions to that. But I think each unique service has its own culture.
Yeah.
And the Air Force, we know, we used to be the new guys on the block, but now
It's the Space Force.
Now, Space Force is the new guys on the block. So we're the like middle child that's like, here, let me like tell you how it is. You know, like the older children are already like in college and have families, and we're like, listen, don't do this. Mom's gonna get real mad. But do this. No, and so I think innovation is a huge part of the Air Force culture as well, and it's constantly. I almost feel like the Air Force is like the millennial of the branches of service, and people are going to be like, oh, that's awful, don't say that, but I'm a millennial, so I love being a millennial. I always ask why are we doing it this way? Why? And not because I don't want to do something, but because I'm challenging it. I'm saying, why are we doing that? Is there a better way that we could be doing this? Is there a more efficient way we could be doing this? Is there a way that we could take care of people a little bit better while we do this? And so I think that's the culture of the Air Force, but that's just me.
Anybody else want to take a stab at culture in the Air Force? If not, I'm going to turn it over to the Sorensen team and ask them what their outside perspective of culture in the Air Force is.
Ooh.
I'd say one thing that it comes to mind, as an operator, our culture is a little bit different as well, even regardless of the officer enlisted cultures. But when I think of culture, especially as a reservist now, I think of the term that I had never really been acquainted with now is citizen airmen. And when I was on active duty for 12 years, it was all about mission. It was all about go, 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 go. And as a reservist, the priorities have shifted, and it's now citizen airmen, which means take care of your life, take care of your family, and take care of the priorities first. And then the airman side is still a priority, but it may not always going to be the priority.
Right. Yeah, that's valid. Which actually you did a great job of kind of emphasizing that change in the reserves as well. So we all love Jeff. Look at that. Jeff has an entire fan base now. So I'm going to take a risk on this one. And if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But I'd be curious from Team Sorensen, from our civilians on our show right now, what is your perspective of the culture in the Air Force? And what do you guys see?
Yeah, looking from the outside in and being around it for the last 2 years, going to Joint Base McGuire and Nellis Air Force Base and Hill and, the various places that we've been, it's a lot like what we experience in the motorsports world. Everyone around it really is family. We're all fighting for the same goal, and at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. So when you're all working at the same thing, I think it's really easy to work together and create a family and, create friends, memories, all of those things.
Nice. I like that. And I agree. We are all trying to achieve the same thing.
Yeah.
First place.
If you ain't first, you're last. Okay.
That's right. All right. Let's get the next question. We got like probably 10, 15 minutes left in the show. We'll do one more question at regular pace, and then we're going to kick it over to the lightning round, where we'll try to see how fast we can answer questions and how many we can go through, which
we've been doing good, actually.
Historically, we're not great at.
No.
But we can get better at. So.
And then maybe we can see Jeff. Please.
Maybe we'll close the show out with Jeff. Would someone's military background be something that would appeal to a race team, and why? Race team, take it away.
It's actually a great question, because I was going to tell you, James, I'm retiring soon. Like, call me. Great maintainer, sir.
I got you.
Next time you're on the show, there's going to be 4 people in the box.
We actually we have somebody on our team. Todd.
Oh yeah, we do actually have somebody on our team, Todd.
That is in the military, and he has a background that he is able to apply to our race team.
Nice. Is he?
Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects, that come from the Air Force that can benefit greatly to being on a race team. When you're working on an F-35, a C-130, something like that, I think it might be a little more important that the bolt is torqued properly or the safety wire is there, because as they were saying earlier, you can just pull over onto the side of the road when you're in the air. So there's a lot of things that even if you were to come out of the Air Force, with the knowledge that you gain there's a lot of opportunity outside of that, even working on a race team. Yeah.
I think even just far from a race team as well, like even the marketing standpoint of things. Like I talked to some of the people that are on the marketing team for the Air Force, and we have very similar conversations of what our goals are and how we're trying to achieve them and how we're going about achieving them. So
Sure.
whether it be the racing side of things, the business side of things, the marketing side, the recruiting side also. I mean, I've talked to some of the recruiters and they kind of talk about how they have to learn how to communicate with the different types of personalities, the introverted and the extroverted. I also have to do the same thing when conversating with fans. Sometimes, you have that little girl that wants to talk to you, but she's super introverted, so you have to learn how to really get it out of them. But there's a lot of things that are very similar.
Gotcha.
Great perspective.
That's really good. And just for context, we lose pictures every once in a while. It happens. Connections aren't amazing everywhere. And I'm pretty sure that the senior and tech sergeant, there they are. We were just talking about you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's fine. We're just blaming it on the hotel internet. That's fine. It's not your fault. It is what it is. So all of our guests call in from separate places, and our job is to have just enough internet to upload and host the show.
Yes.
But guests call in from either home or from their garage or from the office or from the hotel if they have to. And sometimes that internet, it may dip out, and sometimes we lose a screen. But we will do our best to keep the show going. So, all right,
but we're right next to each other.
Oh my god.
Let's get to the lightning round where we answer questions really fast.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Furry, by the way, says, at the end of the day, when it's time to go home, where do the pilots park their planes? That is a fantastic question.
In their parking spots.
Yes.
Oh, come on. Give me something more than that.
I was hoping for a dad joke on that one.
I was going to say wherever it ran out of gas.
Yeah.
True that.
All right. Well, walk me through parking a plane. What's that look like?
It's taxiing is what we call driving. Taxiing an aircraft is probably the most challenging part of operating an airplane a lot of times because you can hit more things on the ground than you do in the air. And so hitting any surface of the aircraft with any part of the airplane is a big deal. And so we have designated parking spots with wingtip clearances that we have to taxi the aircraft on these certain lines in order to make sure that we're clear of anything else on the ground.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, there's your answer. Sometimes they park in hangars. Sometimes they park in like an overhang, and sometimes they park just on the runway. But they basically have like this pretty complex process of a bunch of lines. Like if you ever zoom in on Google Maps and you see like a runway, you see all these lines. They literally have to put the front tire or their tires right over that line and drive it. And they're like inches, like really, really close. Yep. And they have a dude on the ground. You've seen the guy, if you've ever flown on a commercial plane, you see the guys with the orange cones. They've got those guys that are marshaling the aircraft on the ground as well. And they'll bring them to a stop within, I'm sure there's a regulation. What's the plus or minus? How far is your left and right to how much you can make a mistake by? Was it a couple inches maybe? I mean,
it depends on the airplane. Typically, most airplanes, the overall is without a wing marshaller, you got to be at least 20 feet wingtip clearance, and gets down to 10 feet. But there's localisms depending on the lines. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, park. I like my favorite answer is park it where it ran out of gas because that's some classic pilot stuff right there.
Yes.
All right. Good question. I love that question. That was great.
How has serving impacted you and your loved ones?
Another good one.
Ooh, I don't want to take that one. I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, let's go around the room. We'll try to see how quick we can do it. Yeah. We'll just finish up with the host. So we'll finish up with me and Sergeant Patterson. But let's start with Chief.
So for myself, as I stated, it's given me everything good in my life. I met my husband actually working on F-15s. We have 2 beautiful children together, hence why we joined the reserve. We were able to stay stable, and we were able to stay in Colorado for 9 years, and I was able to work at actually 3 different bases while I was there, at USAFA, at Buckley, and at Peterson. And so for us personally, we had a great deal of stability, and we just had our first big PCS for the kiddos. I think what it's done for them, going through this PCS is taught them resiliency, has taught them that, mom does have to travel frequently. And it's also given my husband, who's now on the civilian side, a full-time job working at Robins Air Force Base. back on F-15s, but in that civilian capacity. So for us, it's given us stability, it's given us resilience, it's given us culture, and it's given us happiness and stability. We're needed, but a little adventure, we're also needed.
That's really cool. Great answer. All right, Senior Poulter
and
Tech
Jeff.
Sergeant Greenlee.
And Jeff.
We're going to get to Jeff. The internet will win this one, for sure. All right.
Comment if you want to see Jeff.
Oh, God. Here they come. Here we go. All right. Take it away.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, there's ups and downs, right? So my wife is currently out on a cruise right now with my oldest daughter, and she just asked me if we want to go again in November because life is treating us well, right? Awesome. On the other side of it, when we came down to Georgia, it was challenging on my older daughter because she stays with her mother because I got divorced because I traveled so much when I was active duty and as a loadmaster. But yeah, I mean, we were gone constantly, so there's good and bads as far as how it affects the family. Overall, it's been a great. There's a lot more positives than there are to negatives. But that's in anything that's worked, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So for me, the impact that it's had personally, gosh, I've been able to do and see like so many amazing things that I wouldn't have been able to do without the Air Force. And coming from such a small town, I graduated with 33 kids, so you can imagine how tiny that was. Just being able to get out and do things that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do has been amazing. As far as impacting my family, I think it's really awesome that I can be such a great role model for my nieces and nephew. They see everything that I get to do, and they think it's so awesome and, can't wait to be able to do stuff like that. So that's been really great.
Nice. Very cool. And Majors, Sirs, how about you guys? How has being in the military affected your family life, and what opportunities have you gotten out of it?
Yeah, so when I joined the Air Force, I was single, didn't have a family, and I married my wife. She was nice enough to marry me shortly after kind of getting done with pilot training. So we kind of established our life together as a family within the military. And there are a lot of unique challenges. You are gone a lot. There has to be a lot of open communication. You have to be willing to sacrifice when you can sacrifice on both sides, right? It might mean that you take one job, maybe not another job, and work that together. One of the beautiful things about reserves, since we're recruiting for that, is that there are some opportunities there where you can alleviate some of the stressors from the active duty career within the reserves. There are a lot of people here at Vance Air Force Base who they've chosen to be reserves here because they have family in the Oklahoma, North Texas, Kansas area. And so it works really well for them. And so they have more of a familiar background where they're at. But in the end, it comes down to just taking care and taking advantage of the opportunities that are there for the family with good communication and making sure that you're taking care of everybody.
For me, I think that the thing that sticks out most to me for the impact on my family has been there was a season where I had to get the mission done, and there was a season where I was deployed for 7 months at a time, and being away from the family, kind of what Chief was talking about, the resiliency. My kids grew up without dad around sometimes, and that helped them to understand the importance that there's something greater than me. There's something bigger than what's going on that causes daddy to not be home right now. The flip side of that is they know how important the Air Force has been to me personally. And so now being a reservist, when I can make them a priority over my reserve work, that is impacting them even more to show them that, hey, something that daddy loves to do, flying and serving, you guys are more important right now.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I actually see a comment here that we could throw up, and that right there is a really cool answer to it. It's the second one from the bottom on your favorites there. No, you had it on the favorites, yeah. Why should I consider the reserves over active duty, right? So that's a pretty pointed question, and a lot of times one of those that we might have to figure out how we're going to answer that, but we don't have to. That was a perfect answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's time to give your family the time that they've let you give as active duty, or if your family just needs that time from the beginning, when you need to be able to give your family more time than you give your service, that's exactly when the reserves would be a better option for you than the active duty section, 100%. So,
and there's opportunities within the reserves to still be adventurous and go and spend that time away as well. So,
All right,
For sure.
your turn. Family.
My turn. Those were all good answers. Just whatever they said. No, for me, originally when I joined, it was to get away from the very small town in Nebraska that I lived in. Similar situation. I graduated with 50 people in my class. My elementary was the same building as my high school. So we were very close. We knew we all went to preschool together and got sat by each other's moms. Like, it was crazy. And so I thought that what it was going to do is send me out, and I was going to explore the whole world and just be this like superstar or something. I don't know. And a little bit of that happened. Obviously, here I am. I'll be signing autographs after this, but no. So I did get to experience a lot of really cool things, but it actually made me appreciate home so much more, and it changed the definition of home for me and my family. So home is where my children are, and that's where it will always be for me. I'm originally from Nebraska, but home is Texas right now because my children live here with me. And when they're not here, it doesn't feel like home, for sure. Additionally, it's taught my children to control the controllables and to not really worry about everything else. Are we perfect in that? Absolutely not. But little things like, my daughter was planning a trip to go see her friends that lived in Arizona because she's almost 16, so a lot of her formative, like, really best friends came from our last assignment. That's when she started high school. So she was making a plan, and we had to cancel it. And they were like, yeah, she's like, my mom has to go on this, like, work trip. And they were like, well, can't she just call in? And my daughter was like, what? No. Can't she just call out of work? No, this isn't like, oh, it's Tuesday. Let me just not go to work. Like, you can't do that. And they, just weren't used to that. They weren't used to that, not having that flexibility. But my daughter was just like, no, like, I don't even have to tell her no half the time, because she's like, no, that ain't going to happen. So she's learned. Obviously she can get upset over some things, but she understands that if I'm there, it means that, like, I wanted to be there, and I had the opportunity to be there. But if I'm not there, it didn't mean I didn't want to be. It's just that I had something that at the time took priority. So yeah, I guess that's my answer. I don't know if that answered it, but that's my answer.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time to see Jeff, right?
No, let's go. Let's ask the Sorensen.
The Sorensens.
I was just trying to avoid me. So Sorensen team. Oh, there's Jeff. He's waving. All the Jeff fans out there.
Jeff.
Oh, he's leaving. Okay, bye, Jeff.
Goodness, that was the best part of the show.
Yep.
We should.
Oh, look! Oh my goodness, that's coming.
Oh my gosh!
Look, that is fantastic.
I love it.
That's perfect.
Oh my goodness! Can we have a pet show where we just talk about having pets in the military?
Military pets would be a fun show.
I will do this from. I will
Distinguished gentleman.
Yes.
Distinguished gentleman Jeff.
I have a lot of pets.
Okay, so apparently you and Jeff will be signing autographs after the show.
Yes.
All right, so what I want to kind of hear is so it's kind of a two-part question. What is the impact that being part of a racing community has had on your lives collectively, and then what's it like to actually do that as a family?
I would say, growing up in the motorsports industry, there's a lot of things that I've learned. Being that I'm 20 and I run a full race team alongside my brother, as well as signing these contracts with big partners, has taught me a lot. I've had to grow up very quickly. The motorsports industry comes with a lot of things, whether being management of, individuals that are on your team. I'd say also just learning how to communicate with sponsors and partners. Financial management has been definitely another thing. These race cars are not cheap, but also, at the end of the day, my brother and I are turning this into a career, so the less parts he breaks and the less parts I break, the better at the end of the day.
Right.
But
sure.
There's a lot of things just growing up as well, like traveling. I mean, I travel the world racing cars. I just got home from Italy. I was on a 4-week trip. I was in New Jersey. I flew and then I went to St. Louis to Italy, Italy to St. Louis and then back home. So just traveling the world by myself, I had to learn how to be very independent. And then there's also like the culture side of things that it has taught me. Going to places out of the country from the United States, like I was just in Dubai, and then I was in Scotland, and learning the different cultures was definitely something that I had to adapt to. But just racing as a whole has opened a lot of opportunities for me. Even just partnering with the Air Force has opened a lot of opportunities for me. Like Brandon and I had mentioned, you know, I think flying the F-16 was probably one of the coolest things I've done, and I've done a lot of cool things. That was a life-changing experience. The night before I went to the K9 training, like I did not sleep. It was insane. Yeah. I was so scared, like, to be running from the dog and having it just like chase me. But there was a lot of opportunities that the Air Force has presented me. So I mean, there's like, as a whole, it's developed me into who I am. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm 20. I've been doing it for 15 years. So there's a lot of business. There's a lot of sports, mental side of things. I mean, drifting, you have one shot to go out there, and I think it's kind of similar with like what the Air Force kind of prepares to do as well. Like when you have that one shot that it really matters, like mentally you have to be there fully, and you have to know how to manage that. So there's a lot of things that growing up in racing has taught me, and also how to communicate and be my brother's best friend /
That's cool.
Getting all along with siblings are not always easy.
Yeah.
He said something like that. What's that?
They also have to sacrifice a lot because they don't really get to be kids all the time. They're always training or working on the cars, trying to make them better, or like they don't just get to not show up to work, They have to show up.
Yeah, that's valid. That's really cool. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I would definitely say, I know. You're not going to let me off this one. I think one of the biggest impacts on my family, so I joined kind of later. I joined the Air Force when I was 25. So I already had a family. I was married. I had 2 kids. And it was kind of one of those things where the military, the Air Force specifically, had always just been one of those things. Straight out of high school, I thought I was going to join. And then life happened, went to college, kind of, things happen. And it became one of those opportunities that I just sort of kicked down the road until enough exposure, enough times, enough things being like, there's your sign. And I was like, all right, I'll go talk to a recruiter. Well, I'll tell you firsthand, that's like the last thing a recruiter wants is a 25-year-old to run it. Not to deter you from going in at 25, but like it's a lot easier to recruit straight out of high school when you haven't had a life, right? So when you haven't got a credit card and you've never gotten a speeding ticket and you don't have any of these problems, right? And you're not, you don't have kids and all this stuff because it takes a lot more processing. But it's still absolutely doable. So I think it's really important to know that the family aspect is considered in the military and supported in the military. There are a lot of branches where they say, if we wanted you to have a family, we would have issued you one. Right, that's a silly joke. That's a joke in the military. The Air Force is I would say the first branch to fight that myth, right? Yeah. I've never felt more supported in any other aspect of my life, and my family can feel that as well. And then the support I get from them is really cool because like getting to wear the uniform, getting to serve is an awesome opportunity. Absolutely. But then knowing that my kids are proud of it is like rocket fuel for it. Like my daughter and at least one of my sons are at home watching this right now. Yeah. Daughter's 9, my son's 13, and I guarantee you they're losing their minds right now, but they're just watching because they think the world of me and they think I'm a superstar, and I can't let them down. So it's motivation to get out of bed every single day. It's the push to do what you got to do and make the mission happen. And I think family is just as important for propelling us forward as the Air Force is at helping us support those families. So, yeah.
And you are a superstar. Thanks for having us.
Aww.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
My kids don't
He didn't
care.
hit the clap. She said my kids don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
All right, I just got the noose is coming. I got 5 minutes, so let's do Uber or lightning round. Let's see if we can get through 10 questions in 5 minutes.
10 questions in 5 minutes. Let's go.
Let's go. If we can get 10 questions in 5 minutes, we get to see Jeff one more time. How do I become security forces?
Go to a recruiter.
Go to a recruiter. That's an easy one. Talk to them. Security forces would love to have you. We always need police officers in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. Next question. Can you explain how certain jobs are true 1 weekend a month jobs? Can you explain how certain jobs are true 1 weekend a month jobs? Got it, yeah. Okay. Any one of our reservists?
Yeah, so jobs that have like currency, like aircrew, loadmaster, flight engineer, pilot, they have to have a currency, so they have to stay current so they can continue to do their job, right? Traditional jobs like a personnelist, dental tech, that kind of stuff, they come in 1 weekend per month.
Got it. Too easy. Next question.
How heavy are the aircrafts?
All right. Very heavy.
I've only lifted like 2 or 3, so.
Dude.
The airplane that we fly is about 4,500 pounds, 1,100 horsepower. The C5 max loaded was 840,000 pounds. So anywhere in between.
Wow.
That's heavy. That's very heavy. It's amazing that much weight can actually fly.
That's why they call them heavies. Some of them.
All right, next question. Salaries. Money. Next question.
DFAT. Go to the website.
It all is based on rank,
Yep.
time in service. That means how long you've been in. And then there are variables based on where you live and whether or not you have dependents. Those things will also make a little bit of a difference in your income.
Yep.
What's the starting base pay? It's like somewhere around 1,500, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
So starting base pay for an E1, so like at the bottom is $1,500, but roughly $1,500 a month, and then you get an allowance for housing, which can vary anywhere from $800-900 to several $1,000s, depending on where you live and how expensive it is to live there.
Yep.
And there's a couple other things that tile in there, and then you climb through the enlisted ranks. That number goes up. Then you scoot over to the officer ranks, and then that number continues to increase as well. So.
But the short version is that if you Google that, there's literally pay charts, and everybody with the same rank.
You can go find out exactly how much every single person on this call, except for the Sorensens, make.
Yep.
All right, next question.
Have my degree. Are there officer opportunities within the Air Force Reserves? And if so, what different requirements are there for officer versus enlisted with the reserves?
Officers.
Yes.
Shoot. So yes, there are absolutely opportunities for officers in the reserves.
Yes. And
is there anything you guys want to add to the end of that one? Because there's kind of a two-part question.
So, generally, the only requirement. So the requirement for an officer is typically a 4-year degree, right? If you want to get in a specialty, then you'll need the specialty there, or find a way to get the Air Force to pay for that.
Yep. Perfect. Next question. What makes for a competitive packet to get into OTS? I graduated with a master's in science in sports science and have a 2-year of training D1 athletes. So what makes for a competitive packet? Yes. Yeah, I was going to say that right there makes you competitive. Yep. Talk to an officer recruiter and throw that packet together. It's already competitive. Yep. Come join us.
And we did a show on officers previously.
Yes.
And talked about what makes your package competitive. So go check it out.
Yeah, I hop in and say to leadership. Any volunteer work, if you're doing a job, you want to show leadership in your package. So, because my ASVAB score, my AFO QT scores were horrible, but I had a lot of leadership from when I was enlisted, and I think that's what helped me cross over. So, you definitely want to, in your package, speak to how well you can be a leader.
Yep. And if you're just joining the show and you don't know who that is, that's Major Lane from the background. He's got his own camera, but he won't give me the button for it.
Suspicious.
Very suspicious.
He keeps training you, though, so you're
he
gonna
does.
figure
Eventually,
it out
I'm going to
one day.
figure it out. I'll know how to put it. I got a couple blanks. I could put it in there somewhere. All right, next question. How does getting to retirement change if current active duty wants to transition into the reserves? Great question.
Yes.
So what does it do for your 20-year run if your active duty's in your head? If you're active duty and you're heading for that 20, how does that change if you go to the reserves?
The biggest difference is that the reserve retirement kicks in. You don't get any money actually for it until you turn 60. And then it's based on how many total years worth of days you put in. Every day is basically worth a point that you put in within the reserves. And so if that equals 10 years worth of active duty days, you get about half of a normal retirement paycheck when you turn 60. So if you've worked for 10 years already as an active duty member, all 10 years of those count towards your points in retirement.
Gotcha. Good answer. Thank you.
And then if you do
and it's still possible to get an active duty retirement from the reserves.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially if you've been if you've been on active duty orders or any of your services, what we called those active reserves, then that can contribute as well.
Yep. All right.
The transition from active to reserve is very fluid. It just happens in the background very much. So the hard part is just making sure you're talking to the right people and prepping it. in the end, the transfer happens very, very well. And all that work you put on active transfers over to reserve.
Yep. All right, we have time for 4 more questions. We got to burn through them.
We're doing good though, right?
We are. We're doing good.
What about RPA pilot? What is training duration and what is the age limit? I think Chief mentioned something about that earlier.
I'm going to defer to the recruiters of the pilots. I was definitely an RPA maintainer, so unfortunately I don't know that much about the piloting.
Okay.
So I got to spend a few years doing RPAs for AFSOC flying the MQ-9. A lot of the requirements are pretty similar to normal pilots. The training pipeline is quite a bit quicker. The Air Force pilot training takes about a year total, a year and a half total, depending on. It's a long story. Bottom line is they're very similar. It's a little bit shorter for the RPA pilot.
Gotcha.
But the age though is 40, not 33 for RPA pilots.
Oh, okay.
Right, because you're enlisted.
No, they're not enlisted. No, they're not enlisted.
What am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking. What am I thinking?
We did have.
Yeah. Short time we had enlisted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just keying on that apparently because I remember that was an option. I was like, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, because I tried to do that.
All right, 3 more questions. I've been trying to get a hold of an officer recruiter, and it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Well, that is because, yep, you're not wrong. So a lot of times it's really hard to track down recruiters right now because we are staffed so much less than the other components. You go in there, you're always going to see a ton of Army recruiters in their shop. They have way more recruiters per mile. We actually saw a demographic layout last week where they showed the area that Army is responsible for versus like the area that a single Air Force recruiter is responsible for. And Air Force recruiters are responsible for this massive space of area, and there's only one of them. So if they're not there and it's hard to get a hold of them, it's because they're most likely out doing community engagement. They're out doing something. Stay on them. Keep trying to contact them. And if you just simply don't have luck, you got a couple different options. One, get on airforce.com and look up Recruiter Locator. That is a tool that will literally show you exactly where you could find a recruiter. And if the one that's closest to you that you're trying for is not working, you do not have to use the guy that's closest to you, the guy or girl. You can go to any other recruiter office and you can go through that. You can also call 1-800-423-USAF, or you can just get on the Aim High app and you can go through that way. So you just keep trying. That tenacity will be rewarded. And if it's just not working, expand your search a little bit and use the other resources that are available to you.
Hey, real quick, too, we have LRC members in the comment section. If you all could reach out to that person and get that person in contact with the recruiter for us. Thank you.
Yep, we have moderators in the chat, so we'll send them your way.
If you're still on, let us know what are you interested in, Guard, Reserve, or Active, or Reg Air Force, and we'll definitely get you in contact with one of our recruiters.
Right. Senior Poulter, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just say something? So when I was the program manager for Officer Sessions, we dealt with this a lot, right? So one of the things that I do want to make sure everybody knows is that there's a great pathway to enlist and then commission down the line called the non-EAD commissioning program. Oftentimes we'll run into a scenario where, we have, 100 officer positions, but 2,000 reserve positions here at this base. So there are very few line officer openings. And we do those non-EAD commissioning programs so you can actually enlist, show that you're valuable and you'll be a great leader, and then you get selected. So a lot of our officer positions get filled by the non-EAD commissioning board. So I don't want to dissuade anybody from trying to go through the officer route, but if you're not competitive, you might qualify, but you might not be competitive. But it's a great option to go ahead and enlist and then do the non-EAD commissioning program.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Very cool. Last 2. Drum roll.
Am I ever obligated to leave the dorms? I know that you can leave once you are an E5, but do I have to leave the dorms? Yes.
Yes, you do. They will eventually kick you out to make room for the new
absolutely.
inbounds.
And they will probably kick you out sooner than E5, honestly.
Probably E3, late E3, early E4 is what I've seen.
Yep.
So, yeah, you'll eventually be told to go live in your own home. You can go to on-base housing most of the time, or you can just go off-base, and there's tons of other options. Last question. Active duty. Yeah, these aren't questions, Hunter. I'm 100% sure I want to join.
Do it. Let's go.
Shizzle.
I'm still thinking about it.
You're still thinking about it. Greenlee, Eagles, or Steelers? No. All right, take that down.
100% Steelers.
All right.
Steelers. with that, we're done. Thanks, everybody, except for Sergeant Greenlee.
I think it's a good opportunity for me to say go dogs.
Oh, my God.
That's not
There he
even-
is.
that's not the
He made it all the way to the
That's
end. I
not-
had my fingers crossed. There's about to be a pot. So we have an alumni from Georgia in the house. That'd be Major Lane from the background without the camera button. And he never passes an opportunity to say go dogs on air, which that might be the only time you'll ever hear me say it on air. So, all right. Well, I think that pulls us to the end of the show, guys. Muted because I hit the mute button. I'm just kidding. I did it again on purpose. All right. I figured I'd round the show out one way or the other, so I had to hit that mute button. I could see everybody go, oh, come on, not again. But I found it this time, and I know where it's at. Thank you guys all so very much. Everybody,
Yes.
Chief, Senior, Tech Sergeant Greenlee, Majors, Sirs, and Team Sorensen. This is the coolest thing we've done on the show so far. I want to thank
Absolutely.
all of you for being here, representing Air Force Reserve and helping out everybody out there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We appreciate you. We love you all. And to everyone out there, catch us next time, 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, 2 o'clock. We'll be doing Special Warfare, I believe.
Ooh, really?
Yeah,
That's
it's going to be a
exciting.
cool one. So check us then.
Does
You
anybody
got-
have any final words before we get out here?
Where's Jeff?
We saw Jeff already, but I'll see Jeff again.
Any final words from the
No,
guests?
she left me. So thank
Oh,
you
no.
for everything. This is
Goodbye,
amazing.
Jeff.
The fame was too much for him.
Well, at least we have his picture.
He's feeling the pressure.
At least we have his picture. So thank you guys so much. Anybody got any saved rounds? Anyone want to do any shout outs? Sorensen team, you got anything for us?
Just gonna say thank you for having us. It was a pleasure talking to all of you guys, and I wish you guys the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good luck out there.
Yeah,
When's you
absolutely.
guys' next event?
It is going to be in Washington in
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right. Look them up. Sorensen Drift Team, Air Force, all one big team. Watch them go out there and kick butt and go sideways, make lots of smoke.
I-
All right, guys.
Can I have a saved round?
You asked, but you have to close the show.
Yeah, okay. So I'll close the show. But the only thing I want to say is that they're Air Force Reserve, but work for Air Force recruiting. Sorry, but I work for ATC across the way, across the street. And right now, our whole command, pretty much, not really, but a lot of our command is up at the Oshkosh Air Show right now, representing out there and talking to a bunch of people. So if you haven't ever, it's too late to probably go, but you can check out some of the content that we're pushing out. And if you have questions about the kind of things that the Air Force does, check out some of the things that are going on at the Oshkosh Air Show. It's really cool. So that's
Take
all I
us
gotta
home.
say. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm Sergeant Patterson.
I'm Sergeant
Since you didn't
Cerny,
know that,
talking over her.
it was muted earlier when we introduced ourselves. And thanks for being here. See you next time, guys.
Bye.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Back and Forth brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.